Greetings again. This is Dr. Bill Wyatt, and I want to talk about palatal separation and techniques in older people. Now, we thought we couldn't separate the palate, and you can't really after they get about 40 years old. It won't separate, but you can expand anybody's palate any time during their life at whatever amount you want to. And I found that out too, but I'm going to show you how we came around the deal of expanding young people. I had this young man who crowded and lower anterior teeth. I'll go ahead and get started on this and show it to you. Let's see. Okay, here he is. He's in college. He's about 22 or maybe a little bit. I don't know exactly his age right here now. But we had been cranking on his palate and we could not get the thing to go apart. And I had given up on a man, a young person before that. These were people that needed the palate. They were mouth breathers and their palate doesn't develop properly in here, so they really need that to go in as long as you can and get the palate separated. And so if you can't separate it, expand it anyway. And I've done that on people all their life. Let's go ahead now and show you. Here we had this on him, and we had these two teeth up here trying to separate them, but they wouldn't go apart. And we're pushing apart back on the inside of the mouth. Let me show you that. All right, we had to put some force in the front of the mouth. Now you can take your arms and put them out like this, separate this, and have it out way in front of you. And it's hard to do, especially if you're doing it from back here. And that's what palatal separators are. They're around the 6-year molars, and they go up to the other teeth, but they're not putting the force in the anterior part of the mouth. And the greatest amount of bone between the palates is right here in the front of the mouth. Okay, so we figured we'd have to do something. We had this separator tightened in his mouth, and he was having trouble with it, and he had his girlfriend with him, and he was griping about it some, and so this was on a Saturday morning, kind of early, and I said, well, I'll fix you up. It was 5 of 73. And so I took a piece of wire and built a little deal like that, and you're going to go in and take this part and have them both come together over here. But this is not the way to do it. And I did that and stuck it on his mouth. It was early Saturday morning, and he and his girlfriend went into town to do a little window shopping there in Fort Worth. And they came back in, thank goodness. After a few hours, his girlfriend said they were standing in front of here's the way we hooked that up. Now that's pressure. If you left that alone, they'd have the teeth going laying out like this. But what happened, it separated the palate. And we were pushing out here and pushing in the back. And that's the way we learned to do that. And we could separate the palate on people into their 40s. But we run a wire moving through here and put a lot of spring pressure. This is not the type of deal to do that. Well, anyway, while they were in Fort Worth window shopping, his girlfriend looked up at him and said, hey, your teeth are apart. And he said he went over to the window and looked like that. My gosh, you could stick a wooden match between his front teeth. He did not even feel them go apart. Now, once there is no sutures, there's no nerve endings in the suture, so when they go apart, you don't feel that. But it let the pressure off, so it feel more comfortable for him. So he came back in that Saturday about 2 o'clock, something like that in the evening, and I looked in there and I said, thank God you came back in, because if that had gone all the way and it had those teeth sticking out like that, that's not the way to put the spring on it. Now when you're building a separator, like here, we were going to take some teeth out because of the crowding, and we had this one bonded to all these teeth, and they'll go apart in a bodily fashion. See, we had this banded down here. And when you separate that carries the root, that carries the crown out straight up and down. It'll tilt a little bit when it's going out, but then after you chew on it for a few months, the lingual cusp hit, and then it brings the roots the rest of the way out. And that's what we did on this young man. And so here it is. It opened up, then I pushed it back together, and we get some room in here for these lateral teeth. And we got room down here on the bottom for all those teeth. Okay, we continued with that and carried the case on through. Now, we learned then that if you put force in the front and the back, you can separate people into their 30s and a few of them into the 40s. And there are be people in the 30s you can't separate, and we've got one of them coming up later down here. He only weighs 312 pounds, and we couldn't get it apart back then. But we expanded this and just kept going apart, and you can see where it stretched the bone structure going there. This was 1973 now. We started 71, I believe, and these teeth were very crowded. Now they're lined up like that. We carried it going through to completion, and you can study this case. I don't want to take too much time on it, but that'll put it from one side to the other. Let me go back here and look at this. On this type of case, we're trying to expand the upper arch to get it in. And so we took elastics and come along here, hook up here, that brings the upper out, the lower in. Same thing over here. This is carrying this out, and this is carrying this in. And we'll get that where the upper fits over the lower teeth. And that's the way it should be. And so this is another thing you learn on this. The midline would be off to one side. Thank you now for watching. Let me get this on down to the end. And here the young man is after we finish the case. And I hope you have this problem. Now he came in one day had a big old cavity over there. I said, man, you get in there and fix that thing. Get somebody to fix it. And so he did. And that's the end. Thank you for watching. But you can expand the cuspids. I mean, you could separate the palate on people up into their 30s by pressing on the anterior teeth. And I checked with Donald Timms. He was in New York, and I was there. And I went and asked him what was the age you could separate the palate on somebody. He said, well, about 17 or 18. And there was a whole line of people there to talk to him, so I just walked away. I had already separated people in their low and their middle 30s, and we have separated a few in their 40s. So that happens. You can do this, and so that's a fact. And so I'm going to close out here, and we'll say thank you for this, and I'm going to close out right here.